to the Exceptional Educators Playbook. I'm Vonda Adams. I'm a math consultant here at KVEC, and along beside of me is
Stephanie Kidd. I'm also a math consultant at KVEC.
And the purpose of our podcast is to offer professional learning opportunities to meet the needs of our educators while giving our teachers a platform to share their expertise. So every month, we highlight a different topic that every educator needs to know. Each week, that topic will be broken down into content-specific categories. Week 1, we will explain what that looks like in literacy. Week 2, we look at how that looks through the lens of a math classroom. Week 3, we look at it through a social, emotional, behavioral lens. And then week 4 offers modifications and models for the low incidence population. So today we are discussing co-teaching and collaboration in the math classroom. And we are excited to have a co-teaching team from South Florida Elementary School. Kobe Huff, he's the general education teacher, and Lisa Tackett, she's the special education teacher. And they're going to share with us which co-teaching models that they use, how they make it work in the virtual classroom, how they implement SDI, and then also how they collect their data to drive their instruction. So I'm going to let them tell you just a little bit more about themselves, and then we'll get started. So Kobe, you want to tell us about yourself first, please?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Colby Huff. I teach 8th grade math, Algebra 1, and Geometry here at South Floyd. This is my 6th year teaching. I've taught most middle school classes, math related. I taught reading 1 year. So I've taught a few different things. My first year teaching, I saw that working with special ed students was not one of my strong points. I wasn't familiar the way that I should be. So I actually went back and added my LBD endorsement and certification that year. And through that process, learned a lot about it and learned to appreciate working with all students the way that all educators should. I've been working with Ms. Tackett every day that I've taught. So our co-teaching relationship's really grown, and I'm excited to share that with you guys.
Okay. Ms. Tackett, do you want to share?
My name is Lisa Tackett. I am a special education teacher at South Florida Middle School. Currently, I work with 8th grade students in the areas of reading and math and writing. I taught 27 years at the high school level, and then when our schools consolidated, I stayed at South Floyd and started working with middle school students. I really enjoy working with the team that I work with. We have a great team there, not just Kobe and myself, but the other team members too. They're wonderful to work with.
Awesome. So we're going to get started, and we're talking about co-teaching. So Marilyn Friend has identified 6 areas of co-teaching models. So which one do you use right now in the virtual setting? Or you may use more than one.
Okay. Usually we start with, I said one teach and one assist, because as Kobe's getting the class started, they're doing the bell ringer. I'll be trying to contact students and get them online with us. Kids that join late, if they need a link to get to another site so that they can participate in the class, I'll drop that in the chat for them. I'm constantly watching the chat and doing that. But then we switch once class gets started. Once we're past that bell ringer, we switch more to team teaching. And I'll let Kobe talk about that some.
Yeah, so as we log on, content-wise, one of the important things to know here is that my background obviously is math, but Lisa's is as well. So we both bring something very different to our classroom in that the way that I teach one skill might be a little different than the way that she teaches it. So when we team teach, I may teach a skill one way, and then she might see a different way that works for her. And we know that kids all learn differently. So she may jump in and say, you know, here's how I do it. You guys may like that way better, or it may work out easier for you. So things like, you know, this morning in class, I was showing them, we were working with functions, and as I was going over that with them, she was unmuting and saying, okay, well, what about this? And kind of guiding their thought process. When I asked them to give me a random integer to use as the input, most of them were using positive numbers. So Lisa guided their thought process and said, well, okay, well, what about this? And gave them a negative number. said, okay, is this still an integer? And then of course, they all agree. So we really bounce off of each other and complement each other well with our math instruction. It's really a working relationship where it's 50-50. You know, I do something and then she adds to it, or she does something and I add to it. So
I love that.
Yeah, that's awesome. What changes have you had to make from, I know in the classroom, I've been with you guys and that's awesome to watch you guys work, because Lisa's moving around the classroom all the time and so are you. But in the classroom, I know you guys are able to walk around. What's changed for you guys virtually now?
I think in person it's a lot different because, you know, you're monitoring the classroom constantly. It's easy to do. Give me a thumbs up or thumbs down if you got the skill we just did, or rate yourself on a 1 to 5 understanding. Or even if we're just in a problem on the board, one of the things that we did a lot was a quick check where we have highlighters and we'll walk around and highlight their answer when they get it, and like color coding and things of that nature. And then based on that, we might pull a group over to the side and say, okay, you need to work with me on this one, you guys work here. Or I might say, little Johnny over here has really got the hang of this, he's rocking it. So he might go help his friend over here. So it's a lot of intentional structure in the classroom. Whereas in virtual learning, we're all on one Google Meet, and it's very difficult to, you know, whisper to one person over here, or put this one over here, or separate everybody out. So I think the biggest change and one of the biggest challenges for us is all of the planning and scheduling. And of course, it has to be very intentional. And I think our instruction is always very intentional. But looking at our lessons now, you know, if I see someone is not getting a skill, I can't really just say, okay, step over here for a minute, let's review this. I have to say, hey, can you log on at this time this evening? And let's try to review that. Let's reinforce that and see if we can support you somewhere else.
Something else that works good is that I always have other rooms open, and students know that my math room is open at the same time that Kobe's room is open. So if they're confused on something or need a little extra help, they can always pop into that room where we can talk one-on-one or one-on-2 or 3, so I can get them straightened back up and do what we need to do. They know they can log in for clarification. Also in my schedule, I have one-on-one time built in for every student with special needs throughout the week. And then we can do extra times too.
That's fabulous.
And then Lisa, you mentioned, I remember Friday when we were talking, when you say students can join your group, you mean all students, right? That's
yes. There are times when it'll just be, my students will join my link, but other times I drop that link in the chat. And any student can join that. I know it's not math, but this morning in reading class, we were working on writing a poem. So when I dropped my link, I had one student with special needs come over, but two regular students came over, and we all worked together. So it works out really well just to drop that link in the chat, and anybody can click on that wants to hear it differently or a little more small group instruction.
And what I love about that idea is that it's so discreet too. I mean, the kids can join it, and you know, it's not like everybody's seeing everybody get up and move out of the go to a different area in the classroom or even out of that room. It's just very discreet, the movement of it is.
It is, and one of the things that we always are very careful about is that discretion. I think that it complements our classroom culture a lot. When we say, you know, I don't say, okay, take your kids here, or I take my kids here. They're all our kids. Okay, every kid in my room is Lisa's kid, and they're all my kids, and we make sure they know that. And that's just something that's always been the case. Vonda was talking about that discretion as well when you just drop the link in the chat. And another thing that Lisa has done several times with me, and I know that other teachers on our team too, with our special ed students. So a lot of times if she was to drop a link or say, hey, I need these students to come over to my room, you know, that's kind of a giveaway that those students are going for that reason, for their accommodations or resource time. So she will send me the link ahead of time in an email or something, and she'll say, can you ask them to step over, and I don't even say that it's Lisa's link. I just say, hey, I need these couple of students to click the link I want to put in the chat. You can just do that for me. That way no one else on the meet knows that they're going with Lisa. They just click the link that I dropped. So we try to be careful about being discreet with who's doing what. It is a challenge online. Because like I said, you can't really just whisper in someone's ear like you would in the classroom.
I think that's great. That's great that it removes that stigma per se, and it's like, you know, it's everybody needs help sometimes. It's not like it's something wrong. There's something wrong with you have to have a little extra help. I love that.
So how do you implement the SDI in the co-teaching setting?
Well, assignments are of course modified.
Kobe, since she's kind of froze up, can you elaborate on the SDI in the co-teaching classroom?
Yeah, from my perspective, a lot of the things, like I said, we're very intentional with how we're doing our instruction. One of my favorite things that we do with this is our school uses the Summit Learning Platform. So it's all project-based learning. It's very, very based on, you know, local things, real world examples, things that really pique their interest and get them excited to be learning on the skills. So whereas in some ways they would just be looking at a math problem, you know, we try to incorporate different scenarios, different situations. One of my projects that we've just finished up and that we worked on, we were learning about slope. So we looked at a WINT report from a couple years ago when South Floyd was still a high school, where a wheelchair lift at graduation malfunctioned. We had a student that was using a wheelchair. She was unable to get on stage to get her diploma. So a couple parents in the crowd came out and lifted her up, and it was a great moment, of course. So WINT had recorded that, thankfully. So we showed the students that video, and they watched it, and Lisa taught high school then. So she was able to, you know, speak on that experience and stuff. But then we talked about, okay, what could we do in the future to see that this doesn't happen again? So we talked about the emotions that went with that video, and we talked about some of what the major problem was. And that led to, you know, if it wasn't an electrical lift, maybe we had a portable ramp. So from there, you know, we collected some data, and then we went and read the statutes and regulations in Kentucky over a wheelchair ramp and found the slope of that, which is written in the regulation. So then we looked at a blueprint and some pictures from graduation and things, and we had to map out and see if, you know, you could build a ramp and it fit on our gym floor the way that the stage was set up. So it's really engaging and real world examples that really pique their interest, so that it's not necessarily individualized, but it has that authentic connection that makes them want to do it. And then I think Lisa's back, and I'll let her add some more on the special ed side of that, but just from a general ed classroom teacher, I think that engagement helps a lot.
Yes, and then with this summit program, lessons are labeled, and students can, like, there'll be sentence starters or frames that they fill in. And like even with that project there, when I would meet with students individually, we would look at that, and I would prompt them as to what we needed to know to determine the slope for that and how much space, you know, kind of guiding them through more orally too. Even though they're doing the same work, they have the same opportunity, and need a little more support for that. And then they always, of course, if numeracy is an issue, they have a calculator that's readily available to help them, so that they aren't hindered by not being able to multiply or divide. So we provide supports like that as well.
Now, you had talked about earlier about Desmo's calculator and how you guys use that in the classroom. Is that one of your SDI strategies that you use?
Yes, if the students are very comfortable with that, they will have it already open on their tab, so that when we're doing a live class and we're asking questions and students are dropping answers in the chat, students have that there for them, that they can participate too. They don't, you know, hold back. They're pretty quick on that, and they can drop those answers in the chat just as fast as anyone else can.
What about Jamboard?
Jamboard is something that I use. Kobe uses it quite a bit also. I use it too I use it for demonstration, but also use it for monitoring, because I can put a problem on the Jamboard, and the student can also write on that Jamboard and show me their process and how to, like, some students are working on solving equations. So they can show me, I can see exactly what they're doing and where they may be making a mistake or something that I need to correct or to spend more time on. So it's a great resource to use also.
Okay, Lisa, for you, how do you collect and use your data to guide your instruction?
Well, of course, that's done mostly in my individual time when I have them meet with me one-on-one. I also have assignments and things that I give them. I add checkpoints to Summit for them to do, and I just assign those to my students. Nobody knows that my students just have these extra checkpoints to do. I use readtheory.org. It's a great website for reading checks. I used it some when we were in person, but now that we're virtual, it's a great resource because students read a passage and answer comprehension questions, and then based on the percent they get right, it will either take them up a reading level, or if they're not getting them correct, they'll take them back down reading levels, and they get to do those on their own time. I ask them to do at least 2 a week so we can see how they're progressing. I have them do writing prompts, and then based on whatever they do on that writing prompt, when I grade it, when we meet the next week individually, we will talk about that prompt. Do they need to work on capitalization? Are we needing to work on run-on sentences based on what they did for my writing check? And then I use that Jamboard, like I said, for math checks. And I also use Padlet. That is a wonderful resource that Kobe turned me on to. So I'll let him talk about that. It's great.
Padlet's almost like a digital bulletin board, if you want to think of it that way. So you log in and you make an account. You can pay and have unlimited boards, or you can have 5 free ones. 5's plenty for most purposes. But you just make the website and you send that link and anyone can log on to it. So in the Gen Ed classroom, I have my I Can statement posted, an agenda, and then all the resources and links and things that they need organized there. So you just click on it and you can add anything that you need. You can drag and drop things onto the screen and it just uploads it all to one place. So what we really like about it is, the teacher can do that. So we can put anything that we need, but the students can also. So if I put a math problem for my bell ringer, and I like to do bell ringers that are themed each week. So like on Tuesdays or Teach Me Tuesdays. So I might put a question on that asks them to teach me about, and I give 3 skills, and they choose one of the 3 and they have to tell me all about it. So when they make their post, they can either type their answer, they can do an audio recording, so if they don't want to type that out, they can do a video recording. There's an option to draw, so it gives them a little whiteboard, and they can draw a picture out. So it gives them a lot of opportunity to answer in different ways. And we have made very clear to all students that, if you like doing one over the other, then that's the way that you should do it, not just on the bell ringer, but on all work. If you're better off, just talking through your answers right now while we're completely virtual, then that's what you should do. So it opens opportunities for our students.
That's
I really like using it for my monitoring, because I can put, like, if I have 3 students that are working on the same skill, I can put 5 Post-it notes on there with problems for them to do. And they can use that draw it feature, again, to show me their process and do that. But the other students can't see their work. I'm the only one that can see everybody's work. So everybody gets a chance to solve it without seeing what everybody else did.
That's great.
Yeah, that is great.
Now you had talked, Kobe, earlier that Summit platform has released some special education documents that are very helpful. Can you go into some detail on that?
Yeah, so Summit is really good about providing all the resources that they can. So the way it's set up, especially for math, and I'm not as familiar with the other content areas, but in math, so you have your units, and within each unit, you have a final product or end of unit assessment, which is like your big summative assessment within the unit. And then you have your checkpoints, like Lisa mentioned, which are your formative assessments building up to that. So each final product, your summative, is linked to a math skill. You've got your math skills throughout each unit, and then outside of the math unit, of course, you have your assessment. So Summit has released a couple documents that link, number one, those math skills within each summative assessment in the unit, and then number 2, the actual assessments and the tests. So they've linked each of those skills in the test to different goals for progress monitoring and things of that nature. So they really try to make that as easy as possible. It's linked to standards, and it's really meant to be fluid so that you can look at Summit and it transitions straight over to Kentucky State Standard. I even think the most recent document I saw had some examples of goals that you could put in an IEP already written for you. You would just make it go in and, of course, individualize that for your student. But they're really good to provide, like I said, all the resources that they can to help.
That's awesome. Well, it's absolutely obvious that you guys are a great team. But what factors or characteristics would you say has contributed to your all's arrangement for success?
Go ahead.
Okay. I would say the willingness to work together, that Kobe's never said this is my classroom, my stuff, my students. We've always just worked really well together and had that freedom to speak up, to lead, to teach, to support each other in the classroom. Just that openness and willingness to work together, I think, has been a big part of that.
I agree with that. I joke, and I told them when we talked on Friday also, I joke all the time, if you missed at the start, this is my 6th year teaching, and Lisa's 27th, I think she said.
31st.
Oh, whoa, I'm way off.
You're young, Lisa. You're very young.
So I was way off. So she's way past 27. So what that means is she could retire anytime, but I joke with her that she still has the 21 years left because she can't reach it. I've never been a teacher without her. I think that it carries over into our classroom that we're friends outside of our classroom. We have a good working relationship, but our friendship, like I said, is outside of the school. We've been together since I started, and from day one, I've been very careful about saying, this is our classroom. We share it, and the things that Ms. Tackett says in this room go just as strongly as the things that I say. We shared on Friday when we logged on to talk to Stephanie and Vonda. It was a really emotional experience for us, but our students prepared a surprise for us. We had about 15 to 20 students that had worked behind the scenes and got together and made a slideshow presentation. And they just wanted to say thank you to Ms. Tackett, myself, and our other 2 team members, Kelsey Tackett and Amy Martin, for all that we've done during virtual learning. So they'd worked really hard, and they'd gone through and they'd each written thank you notes and logged on, and then they took their turns reading through them. So there were a couple things, and I'll let Ms. Tackett talk about some of them too, but one of my favorite things, and I think it really speaks volumes about Ms. Tackett's role on our team, is that you had your top-notch students, and you had some students that have struggled some, you had your gen ed students, you had your special ed students. All of those populations are on that call with us. And what was a beautiful experience with it was that everyone on the call complimented Ms. Tackett. Some of them complimented Ms. Tackett more than any of us. And you see in some situations where your gen ed students don't even know who the special ed teacher is. And in our situation, you have, like I said, students that really didn't have to work with Ms. Tackett that are saying very specific details about times that they have worked with her, she's helped or inspired them or done something out of her way to make their day better. And I think that alone speaks up to say what makes our working relationships so successful is because she's involved. She's involved and she's part of our team.
I agree, and I think it's beautiful that the kids know that, and that they took the time to do that for you all. It's just it's awesome. But
it was very special. I want to add something about that video too. I had 2 students with special needs that participated in that presentation. And as far as virtual learning for them, it has been a game changer for them. Like last year, they were very unfocused. It was very hard to get them to do anything. But virtual learning has been so good for them, such that they each created their own slides to be in there and volunteered to read those to us when they were doing the presentation. Like the boy that did it, like he wouldn't speak in class, he didn't want to be around anybody, he was very isolated, and he spoke up, read that to us, and it was so. We all cried. We were babies.
Yeah, I bet.
I want to add one more thing too. So we both said that we share our classroom, and I think it's important for me to clarify that I don't mean that we just share the physical space. So when I say that, when I make my syllabus to give out every year, it has my name and Lisa's name on it. It has our contact information because we're both their teacher. when we sat down to make our classroom rules, and it's not just the two of us, the four of us on our 8th grade team sit down and write our classroom rules together, it's consistent. So that way when they're in my math classroom, or in their social studies room or their science room or wherever, and whichever teacher they're with, their rules are consistent, so we're all enforcing them. As far as grading, you know, if Lisa says, okay, you guys can go to, we use IXL a lot, so I'm using that as an example. IXL recommends they go to an 80 SMART score on each skill. So I recommend that, but then, you know, if Lisa says, okay, you guys go to a 70 on this one, okay? So the kids will come back and say, well, Ms. Tackett said we can stop at a 70. And I don't hesitate in saying, you know, okay, that's what you should do because she's your teacher. And I think it's important to know, you know, what she says goes and what I say go too. And I think in a lot of situations, you know, middle schoolers can be tricky. And they easily say, well, Ms. Tackett told me to do this, or Mr. Huff said do this. And I think when you have the relationship like Lisa and I do, there's no gray area between that. The kids know that we're communicating and we're gonna, they don't have that option. So it's important, like I said, share everything and the outcome's worth it.
Yeah. Well, Kobe, one more thing you had was about John Gordon's traits, and you said you wanted to share some of those.
I did, just to try to wrap things up. Our administrators have been doing a book study from John Gordon about a powerful team. So each week in our PLCs, they've shared what they've read and some of the things. And last week, they shared 11 traits of what made a powerful team. And it just so happened that I was preparing for this. I wrote down 4 of them that I really felt spoke to the relationship between 2 co-teachers. The first one that I want to share is that they hold each other accountable. So you're always wanting to grow and you're pushing each other to do better. You know, like I said, I keep going back to Lisa, and if I'm teaching a skill and she thinks that I could do something a different way, or if she has a different way in general that's completely different, then we're comfortable enough to say, hey, I think this could be improved on. And that's just the way it is. So we hold each other accountable to do better. But then that goes with the next one. To be a great team, you have to be a great team player. And I think that in order to hold each other accountable, you have to be a great team player. Okay, because if I go to Lisa and say, hey, I think we need to do this to be better, and she gets offended, then you're done. You have to be willing to grow and understand that it's not a, oh, I got you, but it's, what can we do to get better? And we're in this together. And that's really what our focus is in. The third thing that I wrote down here speaks about our co-teaching relationship, but again, it goes back to our whole 8th grade team. And I really like this one. It was team beats talent when talent isn't a team. And I think that those words are very powerful because so many times you have doubts about what your talents are, or things you're hesitant to teach or want to teach, or there's always things that we're more passionate about teaching, units that we enjoy better, or things of that nature, or just planning processes or things we bring to the table. And I think when we're working together, something that Lisa or Kelsey or Amy may be able to do that I can't, or the vice versa, when you put all that together, like this says, your team beats your talents. So where all of us may not be super talented separately, together we are. And the last one, the one that we love so much, is sometimes you are the star and sometimes you help the star. So think of a co-teaching relationship where you've got 2 people in the room. So sometimes you're the star and sometimes you help the star. And I add and say, the important thing to remember is either way, the kids are still getting the wish there. Okay, so you're both stars in the room, but you're shining for the same reason. So your students are benefiting from all of that. And it's easy to try to overpower one another, or try to say, okay, this is my classroom, I set these rules, why did you say otherwise, or why did you do this, or question. And if you make every decision with your students' best interest in mind always, then it's going to be a powerful outcome. And that's what our conversations always go on, and that's what our relationship revolves around. So I just thought those 4 things were 4 that we really hold true to in our job.
Yeah. Wow. I just, you all are an awesome team, and you can just, you don't just talk the talk, but you walk the walk, and it's obvious because of the way the kids have shared their thoughts about how you work together as well. It's just, I'm just blown away with the relationship that you two have, and it's obvious that you have worked together a long time, but you have you value each other, and you have one common goal, and that's like Kobe just said, it's your kids that you have in mind, and that's your goal, is for them to be the best that they can be. But thank you all. Thank you so much for sharing with us today, and thank those of you that are with us for attending this week's session of the Exceptional Educators Playbook. Just to sum up some of the things that they've shared with us, they use a team teaching approach a lot with co-teaching, but that involves a lot of planning outside of just the classroom, and they value each other, and they see each other as a 50-50 relationship. And of course, then they share lots of resources, and in particular, the Summit Learning platform that they use. If you couldn't sense the passion that they have for each other and the work that they do, then I don't know. I can't sum up any better than what they've just said themselves. But if you would like to have a deeper understanding and resources and more specific strategies and tools, then you can visit our math podcast Google Classroom, and our class code is FNJPQQN, and I'll repeat that, FNJPQQN. Or you can just email one of us. You can email myself, vonda.adams@theholler.org, or stephanie.kidd@theholler.org. And of course, also you can visit our Facebook page at KVEC Exceptional Children, or we're also on Instagram at KVECEC. And of course, we're also on The Holler. So we would like for you to join us again next month, and we will be talking about developing goals and determining accommodations. So until next time, we'll holler at you later.